Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Joffrey Noodle Legs here again today. Today I'm going to be doing a top 10. I've not done one for a little while. This could be the first top 10 of this year, I think. Don't think I've done one this year. So I'm going through a top 10. My top 10 psychological horror movies. Now, what I mean by psychological, most horror movies are psychological. But there's a certain part of them that leaves you a little bit guessing and could maybe mean, oh, could have, didn't think that was going to happen. Or it could be, this film could have 2 or 3 different ways or 3 different meanings to the film. So that's what I mean by psychological, something that uses your mind a little bit. Whereas, a lot of my favourites, which are slasher movies, as you know, are more obvious and predictable, but they're really cool too. But I'm going to go through 10 of my favourite sort of like psychological ones. But first I've got a few honourable mentions because I can only fit 10 in 10. This one here is, I did do a review of this on my channel and gave it a good review, and that's Hereditary. Again, it's one of those sort of films that could have took a different angle on things, but in the end it sort of turned out to be a sort of like an occult sort of witchcraft kind of movie, which is really, really cool. Loved it. And again, it's one of those films that you watch and you don't really know where it's going until the end. So that was really, really cool. I did like the sort of the play on that sort of film, which is really cool. Another one is a classic, which, yeah, a lot of people love, and I love it too. And it's the one with Nick Nolte, Jennifer Lang, and Robert De Niro, and that's Cape Fear. Such a good film. Again, you don't really know what direction it's going to take. Obviously, it's about Robert De Niro, who's just come out of prison. He's been put in prison by Nick Nolte, who's his lawyer, who's supposed to be representing him, but actually stopped him from, sorry, got hair there, stopped him from coming out of not being in prison because he hid some information. So the story sort of like unfolds, and it's sort of like a sort of a stalking horror, but it's a psychological sort of like games that he plays with the family. It's really, really cool. Love that film. Next one is a 1970s giallo kind of film by Lucio Fulci, who normally does films like kind of wacky horror films and gory horror films. He's and zombie films. He's covered most genres in horror. He's done your zombie flesh eaters. He's done your Gates of Hell trilogy, the Beyond, etc. He's done the serial killer genre with the New York Ripper, and this is his version of a sort of a giallo sort of mystery whodunit kind of film, and it's The Psychic. I watched this last night and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. Thinking about doing a review on it. I don't know, it's in my brain to do it, and I've got a few clips from the film on my phone to maybe do it, but I'm not quite sure because I'm trying to get the enthusiasm up to do it. I just don't want to be every film I watch to do a review on, and so it was good, really cool, and it was a different, this was more like his sort of Argento kind of film, if you like, and it was really enjoyable. Really enjoyed it, about a woman who's got psychic powers. It's really cool. So I'm going to get to the top 10. I won't waste any more time. Number 10, really cool film. Most of these are modern films, by the way. I think the psychological side of the horror film is more today's kind of horror film than it was back in the past. Obviously, the original films were monster flicks, and then you went through the sort of the classic stories like the Frankenstein and the vampires, and in the 70s we went through the exploitation horror films, and in the 80s we went through the slashers, and then from the 90s onwards we sort of like got into the more psychological sort of films. So at number 10 is It Follows, which is a really cool film, by the way, guys. It's about this curse that it's something that haunts you, follows you around, and can ultimately kill you. So you're like being followed and on the run from something. Could be a person, could be an animal, whatever it is. but it will follow you until it gets to you. And the only way to get rid of that curse is to pass it on to someone else. It's a really cool film. Really enjoyed it. Surprised I've never done a second one. But yeah, really, really cool. So that's number 10, It Follows. Number 9 is a British horror film. Really cool. It's called The Ritual. This is about a group of guys going on a sort of like a lad's weekend away, hiking in, I believe it's sort of Norway or Sweden. They're going hiking, and lots of things happen on the way, and you're thinking, what's causing all this to happen? And it turns into sort of like a sort of witchcrafty, occult sort of monster sort of film, and you don't really know what's happening until as the film unfolds. So it sort of like plays with your brain a little bit, and plays with your sort of claustrophobic sort of sense of psychological, where you don't know where to go because you're in this woodlands, and where do you go? So it's really, really cool. Good film, The Ritual, number 9. Number 8 is very, very similar to It Follows, and this came out last year in the cinema, and it came out on Blu-ray this year, and it's called Smile. Again, it's the same sort of thing as It Follows. It's this kind of, if you've witnessed someone committing suicide, I think you're in danger of that sort of thing unless you pass the curse on again to someone else. It's a bit like that, so it's very similar to It Follows, but it's a really cool film. I really enjoyed it. A lot of people gave it a sort of mediocre review, but I actually really enjoyed it. Thinking about reviewing it on my channel, not quite sure, because obviously it's quite modern, so it might get blocked, but we'll see. I might give that another watch and review that. That's in at number 8. Number 7 is a serial killer film, and it's The House That Jack Built. This is something I will review on my channel when I get round to it. Starring Matt Dillon. It's about it's about a serial killer, and it's a very disturbing film, but he builds his house like out of these bodies and stuff, and he goes to hell in the end and stuff. It's a really sort of like messed up film, and it really leaves your brain, what's going on, that sort of film, and then it sort of unfolds to a climatic end. So again, I'm not going to give you too much away on this, because I will review this on my channel. That's number 7, The House That Jack Built. Really disturbing though, guys. Right, number 6. Another sort of classic, really. Not talked about too much on this channel, because more of a sort of horror fantasy film, if you like. And it's by Del Toro, who's a great director, and it's Pan's Labyrinth. Again, this one is sort of like based in the sort of World War II time, when this woman seeing these sort of visions of this this labyrinth with these weird creatures in it, and it really does play with your brain a lot and keeps you guessing all the way through what's going on. Is this real, or is it just dreaming, or what's going on? Again, it's another film that really needs a review on my channel. It's one of those films that's really beautiful as well, and really needs like a 4K release. Like, I don't really dabble in rebuying stuff, but I would probably buy this in 4K because I think it would look stunning. It is a real sort of mind-twisting, bending sort of movie, fantasy sort of horror. Really cool film, Pan's Labyrinth. So we're into my top 5. Number 5 is a sort of modern film with Helen Hunt, available on Arrow Videos, and it's called I See You. This is about a small town in America, and a young lad goes missing, and there's sort of like supernatural, psychological things going on behind it. A little bit like Hereditary. It's sort of like it could take different directions, but it seems to take this direction. It's a really, really cool film. Again, I don't want to say too much because I don't want to spoil it, and I do believe there's a review of this on my channel. So please go and check it out if there is. It's a really cool film. My lad Lemonlaw just picked this up, and he's been talking to me about it quite a bit, because it's obviously played with his brain a little bit, and he's really enjoyed it. And he says that it's really surprising, he loved the ending. So it's definitely worth one checking out if you can. I See You, number 5. Number 4, this is a different sort of horror film now, because it touches on a very, very taboo, horrible subject of like sort of paedophile sort sort of story, and it's about I believe a paedophile that's sort of haunted by his going on, because it's all based around his childhood, and he carries this spider like puppet around with him that seems to haunt him, and it's called Possum. It's a really, really strange, messed up film, and it takes a few viewings to actually get to grips with what's going on in the film. Yeah, because it took me a couple of watches to realise this is about a paedophile, um, and because I didn't really get that in the first watching. I just thought it was just a guy with messed up dreams because of his mixed up childhood. But yeah, it unfolds throughout the film, because you can see how all the town sort of like everybody in the town sort of really avoid him and gossiping about him, and it's a very, very strange film, but very, very intelligent as well. It's definitely worth a watch if you like your films a bit more thought-provoking, and a bit more, you having to use your brain a bit more and use your mind. And as it can be quite scary in parts with this this sort of creature, spider-like creature. And that's what attracted to me, because I love spiders. I thought, oh, is it about spiders? No, it's not about spiders. I know now, but when I first bought it, I thought it was about a giant spider. Not bad. That's what you get when you judge a book by the cover. But I watched it and I absolutely really loved it, and it's got one of my favourite actors in it. So that was the other reason why I bought it, really, because I just really, really like it a lot. Really cool. Yeah, so it's got one of my favourite actors in it, Sean Harris, who was in the British horror film Creep, and other great films like A Lonely Place to Die. He was in Prometheus and stuff, and he was in this really cool Possum, number 4. Number 3, bit of an obvious one, I suppose, because it's got one of those. It's one of those stories that when you watch it and when it happens, you think, oh my god, okay, and that's Orphan. Again, it's one of those ones that plays with your brain, because when you're watching it, if you've never seen it, you don't know what direction it's going in, or why is she like this, why is she playing like this, and then when you get to sort of like the conclusion and find out what's happening, it's a little bit mind-blowing, and it was really, really well sort of thought out, and it's a great psychological sort of horror. Really cool film. Orphan, number 3. Number 2, now I did a review on this channel, but I'm not sure if it's on there, because I can't find it. I mean, I can see it, but I'm not sure if anyone else can. I don't know if it's been blocked, but absolutely love this film. It came out last year, and it's one of the best horror films in years, and it's called Men. A really cool film. It's little synopsis. This woman, husband has killed himself. She blames herself. She goes to the countryside, to a cottage to get away from stuff for a while. And this town that she's gone to seems to be pretty much all men there. And she's sort of like still dealing with her trauma. And this sort of film sort of takes you into how men are perceived to be hostile to women when they've gone through a traumatic thing, in different sort of ways. So you've got some men that are quite predatory, you've got other men that are quite sort of like physically violent, others are quite mentally sort of hostile. And this is what the film's about. It's a really different sort of horror film, but it's amazing. I was absolutely glued in the end. It's so messed up. A brilliant ending. Number 1 has to be probably the most obvious one to pop in there, and it's The Sixth Sense. Obviously, I mean, it's a classic horror film, but again, it's about a young boy that's got this power of being able to see and communicate with dead people, and he's being seen by a child psychologist played by Bruce Willis. And as the story unfolds and their relationship builds, the story sort of unfolds to a really sort of like wow sort of ending. But it's a really cool film. It's quite scary. There's quite a few jump scares in it, because it's like a sort of like ghost sort of film. But it's a really great film. Absolutely really good. And that's my favourite, probably psychological horror film. and that's The Sixth Sense. There's so many films I could have put in there because most genres has psychological horror films. You know, you got cop sort of ones, you got serial killer ones, you've got like demonic ones like Exorcist and all that, and The Omen. They're all kind of psychological, you know, and some of the slasher films are psychological. When a Stranger Calls, House of the Devil, all these sort of films. But they're the ones that I went with because I wanted to pick things that I've not really picked in other top tens and films that I really love. Um, there's a few in there I will do some reviews of. And there's some films I really love you to check out. Please check out Men if you've never seen it. It is a lot of these are quite slow burn, guys. But that's why they're psychological, because the horror's in the mind, not in what you see in these sort of films. So that's what's really really cool about them, and they're films that you can put on when you want something a bit more, not say serious to watch, but not predictable to watch. Okay, so these are the horrors to sort of put on. But there's films like Eden Lake that I've just picked up, and films like that that are really worth sort of like checking out. The Strangers is another sort of good psychological slasher film, which is really really cool. But then you've got some sci-fi ones like The Fourth Kind and Event Horizon and all these, and even Sphere. These are all sort of psychological kind of horror films. Check them out, guys, if you get a chance. But check any of these films out. They're in the top 10 for a reason, because they're amazing. There's some great British horror films in there. Please check out The Ritual. Really cool. This really needs a Blu-ray release. It's only available on DVD, which sort of sucks, but that's cool. Check out some horror channels, guys. Oh, of course, don't forget the J horror films. They're pretty much all psychological. The Grudge, The Ring, Dark Waters. I didn't include them in here because they're obviously psychological horrors, you know, and so there's no more point me putting them in here. So these are ones that you probably not have thought about, but I'll put them in just for something for you to check out. Check out some horror channels with me, guys. Check out Horror Hands, Horror Geek, Man v Film, RS Designs, Pizzlewell, I Am the Ice Lord, Sarah of Horror, Cat Watches Horror. Some great channels, guys. Please check them all out. Until next time, look after yourselves, look after one another, and I really hope I'll see you all soon.